You are listening to Small Business Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives small business owners the straight talk on productivity, time management, business systems, leading your teams, strategic decision-making, and mindset. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. Today is episode 355, Standout Marketing That Resonates with Your Audience, with Madison Paige. If you're a small business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve time management, and elevate productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I'm looking forward to you getting to meet our guest, Madison Paige. This was such a great interview. I truly enjoyed it as the host, and I know you are going to enjoy it and find it incredibly valuable. Madison Paige, business growth specialist, top-rated business podcast host, and industry-leading online community builder. She helps brands build a ride-or-die online community so you can stand out and sell out your products and launches online. Her genuine spirit, high energy, and 9 years of experience in the social media world, supporting thousands of product-based businesses in their growth journey, equips her to bring you high-level practical tips as your newest biz growth bestie. She does specialize with product-based business owners, and I did circle back and ask her and talk to her about service-based business owners, and she said she does work with service-based business owners. And I know that we have both that listen to this podcast frequently, but I did want to just clarify that because I was so impressed with her. I wanted to see how she could actually help my clients and perhaps even my own business with some of the strategies, going deeper with some of the strategies she's about to share with you in this interview. Do you want to partner together in the new year? Perhaps you've been tuning into the podcast for months or even years. Walked away from each episode with helpful productivity, time management, and business growth strategies, and have thought about working with me one-on-one, but just haven't made the move yet. Is that you? Am I speaking to you? Maybe you're eager to fill some skills or knowledge gaps in your business for 2025, and you're not quite sure how to get started. Or perhaps you've been feeling a bit alone in business, unsupported, and want someone to partner with you in the new year. Someone who will hold you accountable and coach you through overcoming the challenges you're facing in your business. Challenges like making a new hire, managing your time, creating more efficiency, reducing the stress and overwhelm of running a business, increasing profits, and making strategic decisions for 2025. If you have any interest in getting coaching support for the new year so that you can be more confident business owner and run your business better, we should talk. I have limited openings for one-on-one coaching clients in early 2025. So if you are interested to learn more and find out if working together is the next right step for you and your business, I invite you to schedule a discovery call. Head on over to amberdelagarza.com/call. Again, that's amberdelagarza.com/call. And now let's meet our guest and get to the straight talk. Welcome, Madison. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to diving into our topic today. Before we do, I would love for you to just share a little bit about yourself we didn't hear in your official bio. And why do I get to talk to you about branding and launching and all this stuff that every business needs?
Yeah.
And yet, they need it and they need help with it. So, why is this your lane? I'd love to hear more.
Yes, absolutely. So I am a marketing consultant. I help small businesses of all kinds grow and sell through social media. And my story is a little unique. My family bought an adventure resort when I was 12 years old. And I was always kind of the entrepreneurial kid even before this, but that like solidified my love for business. By the time I was 14, I was answering phone reservations. 16, I was like the operations manager of like 50 people and was running this business. And it really was what I thought I would do kind of forever. And it was my happy place. I absolutely loved it. It was everything that I kind of did and I wanted. I went through that business and it was so much fun, but it was all encompassing. Like I was
Mm.
the major operations manager, but I didn't fully have because it wasn't my business. I didn't fully have like full reins to be able to do whatever I wanted and make all of these other changes. I basically burnt out. I went to
Yeah.
college for business management and marketing, thinking I was going to run this business forever. And while I was in college, I started a blog talking about sustainability and outdoor living and exploration, things like that. I started to sell products through that blog. And then people in my local area started basically asking me, they were like, okay, we see your social media working. Can you run our socials? So I did social media management. I did social media management for a few years. And then people started to ask me, hey, like, we need you forever. Once you graduate college, you won't be here anymore. Can you just teach us what you do so we can keep seeing these results? And I created frameworks, I created programs, and now I have been teaching people how to market their business for about 5 years. I went full time in this business after saying goodbye with teary eyes to my family's business.
Oh, I
And now
bet.
I've been doing this for the last few years. And my major mission really is to help businesses grow without it having to be all consuming 24/7. I like to build what I call freepreneur businesses where you have a full life and you build your business around a full life, not the other
Mhm.
way around.
Yeah, I mean, I love that mission. And I just experience clients time and time again. Marketing's not my lane of expertise, but
Yeah.
over and over, it is such a challenge because it's the unknown. Like, just
Yeah.
starting off, like, the obvious question is you have all these strategies you're employing, and how do you know they're working?
Yeah, 100%. And it can be disheartening in the beginning because a lot of it is testing. A lot of it, yes, you can learn strategy, but even when you know the strategy, a lot of working with my clients is like, here's the strategy. I teach 7 types of content. Let's do these 7 types. And let's try it with your major message, your major meaning, whatever either transformation or product benefit that you are providing. And then let's test a bunch of different types of content because I'm a speaker. Like I talk. That's why I have a
Mhm.
podcast and the content that performs the best for me is face to cam where I'm talking. But some of my clients who are really good with aesthetics and visuals, the content that provides that performs best for them is more visual kind of content. And so when you're looking at marketing, what you really want to do is be able to kind of take away the criticism and look at what you're creating from a more curious eye as seeing, okay, like what themes here are actually working better because views in and of themselves do not always mean that that is actually the highest performing. Something that I think a lot of people think is like, I'm posting this piece of content and it is supposed to grow, nurture, and sell to my audience all in one. Whereas different pieces of content are there for different intentions. And so, really, what it comes down to is understanding the different pieces of content, what intention they have, and then looking at the like engagement metric that can tell you if that piece of content, if that intention actually came through with that piece of content.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
amazing. We're gonna break a lot of that down. So first, I was like rapidly taking notes over here. So
Yes.
first, you have 7 types of content. You're
Yes.
saying to test them and see what feels right for the business owner to deliver their messaging. I couldn't agree more. When I
Yeah.
first got into business, blogging was all the rage. I blogged and I found myself with high resistance, and I would pace behind my assistant and I would
Yeah.
talk it out. And then I'd go in my car and listen to podcasts. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it's really embarrassing how long it took me to connect the dots that I should not be blogging and I should be podcasting.
Podcasting. Yes.
And I got to tell you that to date, And I started in 2017. It was the single best decision I made in my
Yeah,
business
me
was
too.
to podcast.
Mhm.
So I would like you to share, if you would, the 7 types of content
Yes,
and maybe a little bit about like if this is your personality type and your
for
jam,
sure.
maybe this is the thing. It's going to
Yeah.
be a 2-part question. And when they're experimenting, are you recommending they experiment all at once?
Yeah, so I recommend you do experiment with. So, my 7 types of content are actually broken up into content to grow, content to nurture, and content to sell. So, we want to
Okay.
experiment with that content that's out there to grow. So, my 7 types of content are more like intentions behind your piece of content. They're not exactly styles, but there are
Oh,
also archetypes that I do teach of like, which different pieces. So, let's start there and we'll get into strategy and kind of
yeah.
content and messaging. But there's different types of people when it comes to content. And I recommend no matter if you're already like, Maddie, I'm a talker. I know I'm a talker. I know I'm a speaker. I know I'm going to be able to, I need to be able to talk this through. It's how people connect
Mhm.
with me. I still think it's good to test them all just to see kind of what your audience responds to, as well as what you really love to create, because you might try and create a different kind of piece of content. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, this is really fun.
Yeah.
There's the speakers that really are just like educating and talking. A lot of them are podcasters. A lot of them that people tell you that they're like kind of drawn to your energy. I'm a speaker archetype when it comes to content creation. People see me, they like hear my podcast, and for whatever reason, it's just I guess who I am is they like to be in the energy of me talking.
Yeah.
I could stand in front of 5,000 people tomorrow and give a speech, and I wouldn't be upset about it. Like I wouldn't be, I might be sweating a little bit, but I'm not gonna like run off stage. All right. So a
Okay, but
speaker,
question, were you
yeah,
always that way?
yeah,
Like,
I
because
really
I
was.
oh, you've always been that
I
way.
really
Okay.
was. Yeah, in high
Yeah.
school, like everything. I was just I always have just loved the public speaking, loved the presentations. Like I never wanted to write the essays. I wanted to do a presentation where I had to stand up. It was just so much easier. It's so much easier to speak about it in that type of way.
And someone else
Um,
is like, "That's my worst nightmare.
yes,
Never, never do that." So I just wanna
exactly.
share because if anyone's listening, what I heard you just say, and you can
Mhm,
let me know if I'm correct, is like, don't count anything out until you test it.
exactly.
Because my own journey is when I did start podcasting, I was already starting my speaking career as well.
Yeah.
Again, another obvious why aren't we connecting dots back then?
Yeah.
But when I started my business, I would not have considered myself a speaker or truly enjoying it until I tested it. And then I felt that energy in front of
Yeah.
an audience and they felt my energy. And I was like, wow, there's something there. So I just want to share that if you have not yet tried that, you may not know if that's your jam. Don't knock it till you try it.
Yes, 100%. And some of it might be like it might be your jam, but you might be a little afraid to do it. But through that fear, you'll be able to uncover this is really like a lot of public speakers would have probably told you 5 years ago they were not a public speaker. I might be the exception to that rule. But speakers like to talk, they like to share stories, they like to
Yeah.
kind of just find any way to really get their message across, similar to educators, which are people that like to take the lens of pure education. These are your science people, these are your people that are researching, you're probably reading news articles, and you like to look and really look at the content and say, let me educate you on this exact topic right now. And where I think speakers and educators have a lot of overlap, educators like to take it from a scientific approach. So if you're teaching about health, you're going to sit down and say, here's the biological, like actual things. Whereas a speaker is going to speak more about it through metaphors and stories and pieces like that.
Mhm.
Another piece might be a lifestyle creator. Some people are really good at just sharing their day to day and being able to create and connect in a personal sense in that sense, where those are the day in the life. So the OOTDs, they're saying,
Yeah.
come with me to go do this. You can kind of think about different influencers that you follow, different personal brands, different people that do this. Lifestyle creators are people that are just like, they're good at sharing their day to day life. If you are if you're a health coach, these are kind of like your eat, what do I eat in the day? You're still teaching people, but you're creating it through kind of your lifestyle and bringing kind of your phone along with you in that sense.
But, like, if that's natural to you, it doesn't feel like heavy lifting, right? I can tell you that
Exactly.
is not my
Me
archetype,
either.
right?
Mm-mm.
And when I try because I have tried this many times, like start, stop, start, stop. It's such a heavy lift. I feel like I'm using my brain over here. And I'm like, who's going to run the business? I'm trying to see how I can share something about my life
Yes.
because it's not like a natural connection.
No. And when I would try to create that style of content, I would end up just recording the whole video in like 15 minutes of like, here's my breakfast, here's my lunch, this is what I'm doing in the afternoon. I'm like, this is totally fake. Like for me to put this through is like not, and it might look like what my actual day looks like, but it wasn't me taking a video at 9 a.m., 11 a.m., noon, 1, and 5.
Right.
And that was when I knew, like, if it feels like you just said, if it feels really sticky, when it's kind of like it's a no as opposed to it's just new, like you have to kind of be able to see if it's a no for you or if it's new for you. If it's new, it can feel sticky and it can feel hard. But when it's a no, you're like, this is just not something that's going to work for me. When you're kind of trying to test and see what these things kind of work for you. So we have speaker, we have educator, we have lifestyle, we have aesthetics. So some people really are just really great at the visuals. It was something that I really had to grow into, was the graphic design and the visual elements of things. I'm a speaker. I wasn't like the creative, really like minded person, but some people really come forward with, they've got the beautiful graphics, the beautiful videos right away, and their audience will really see that. And their audience will also probably be more called to that as well. It really just depends on who you are. And I would say these are the 4 major ones, are the speaker, the educator, the lifestyle creator, and the aesthetics. And then of course there's some kind of like nuances into some people, but these are the 4 major kind of archetypes that I see that I really like for people to kind of play with. And like there's so much nuance to content, and because content does have trends, it's kind of hard. And I guess that might be another one, is kind of people that are talking about trends, is like they really are just in on every trend, kind of like that Gen Z kind of vibe where they're just like in on the trend. They're doing this and they're seeing the mirror and they're seeing all of these other words and they're using it. But again, it takes a level of consumption to be able to stay up to date with that, where some people aren't going to connect with that type of content as well.
Yeah. So when you shared the 4, which I hope everyone's rapidly taking as many notes as I have here, is my natural like place is educator.
Yeah.
Okay. And I had to work on the speaker. I didn't have to work on it like super hard, but I definitely laid that over, like you said. But I would say my primary of like where I always go, in fact, just like personalities, there's a like dark side and a light side, is that I always have to like ask the question. In fact, my content manager has been given full permission anytime, full stop. Okay, as a reminder, this is free content, because like I just want to give it all. Like I'm like go in, and when I first started podcasting, it was like hour like or more of like a topic, and I'm like, no, how can you just share a piece of it? It has to be the whole thing. And I would just dive in, and that's my natural like tendency. And even then, I had to kind of pull it back and say, okay, now this is natural, but like, what's the bigger strategy? And the bigger strategy is not doing these hour-long trainings.
Exactly.
Yeah. You couldn't even call it a podcast episode. It was an hour-long training.
I've had people tell me that before too. They're like, Maddie, we got to reel this back a little bit. Like, you don't even call in frameworks from A to Z here. We're just bits and pieces and like pep talks and breakthroughs, things like that.
Yeah. And so, okay, this is great. And so for me, the lifestyle, here's what's challenging is I literally teach like stay in your lane. You're not watching everybody else. But when I do share lifestyle, it's the most engaged content.
Yes.
And yet it's just not. It's not the thing that I can stay consistent with. It doesn't seem natural.
Yeah.
So what happens when your archetype isn't in alignment with your audience's like wants? And maybe that doesn't matter because you are also sharing views versus, would you say views versus engagement?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe I'm just seeing views and it doesn't need to be the thing that I'm diving into. Can you share a little bit about why I'm experiencing that?
100%. And actually that's the same for me, as I'm a speaker and my audience really loves lifestyle. Granted, my lifestyle is kind of unique. I do live out of a school bus most of the time of year and we travel around. And so the visuals that I can create, I travel a lot. I have a lot of really great videos and photos and things. And so a lot of people do have the like they're drawn to that just because it is more engaging.
Yeah.
And so for me, I just know that it has to be a pillar within my content when I am trying to grow or like connect in some way.
Okay.
For me, the lifestyle stuff, I know that those videos are going to go out to more people. I also am somebody that lifestyle stuff doesn't have to be like a day in my life. It can be like, here is a 5-second video. I take a lot of really short 5 to 7 second videos, and then I can go back and put them all together. Some videos to this day in 2024, were taken in 2021, 2022, 2023, where I
Mm,
just have a huge library of 5 to 7 second videos because most people can't really tell in what year when all of this happened, especially when it's traveling and it's a sunset or it's mountains or anything like that. So
right.
there's certain pieces and everything that we do is like, these are the easy things. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to work for us. And then we can look at it and say, okay, but what is also working and what are some of those more labored pieces of content that we do just want to implement? So for you, if your lifestyle stuff doesn't come naturally in your, like as your educator, maybe try to add some 5 to 7 second pieces of content that are more just like trending audios over a 7 second video that shows your lifestyle while you're making coffee.
Mm,
If that's what your audience really likes, is they do like that more authentic style content. It's something that we've seen through the advent of TikTok as well, is just the natural kind of organic content that's happening. The content that does perform does kind of feel like that more lifestyle, easy kind of organic stuff. So pouring your coffee in the morning, hanging out with kids, or going here, going there, going on vacation, whatever it is that you're doing. So you can take those little videos, and it doesn't have to be, we're like, here, come with me for my entire day. It can
right.
be, this is something that I'm doing in a 7 second, like B-roll style video.
Yeah, like a glimpse in there. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, excellent. So, can you share with us your three types that you shared? You shared grow, nurture, and sell. So,
Yeah.
you have you have different content for each of these stages, and we need people in each of these stages, which I would
Yeah.
assume is the sales funnel that most people are
Exactly.
talking about. Okay.
Yes. So, what the 7 types of content are really go into 3 categories. You can kind of think of them as like a triple Venn diagram. I like to think of them like in an overlap. So, some grow and nurture, some nurture and sell. And when we're really looking at this, so many people think of business as, or like selling as like parallel. Every piece of content should point to sales. Like they're all running parallel to each other. Today I'm talking about this, I'm talking about that, I'm talking about this other thing, and they're all trying to point to sales. But when you talk about a buying process or a buying cycle, some people need to be moved through this cycle in order to actually get them to buy. They need to move through a funnel. So
Oh,
some content has to be there to grow, some content has to be there to nurture, and some content has to be there to sell. So this is a really like deep and in there framework, but we can kind of rifle through these 7 types and kind of scroll through what this looks like. But in your mind, if you picture that triple Venn diagram, as they go throughout, you're getting deeper into getting people closer to actually buying. Grow, nurture, sell is similar to like, know, like, and trust, or it's similar to like cold lead, warm lead, hot lead. You're trying to
okay.
move
Yeah.
people through that. It's all synonymous to each other.
Well, how do you
But
define grow? Is that growing the audience or growing your
awareness.
relationship with them? Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
growth is more getting new people in your audience. Nurture is building your ride or die community. And selling is actually going to be converting them, whether it's a launch, whether it's a sale, or whether it's just like a push of some kind that is
Yeah.
selling style content. So when we talk about growth, engagement style content is a really big piece of growth content. That engagement style content is going to be the, hi, my name is Maddie. I am a business coach and I help, and this is a little bit about me. Follow me if that's what you really like. Or you'll see people do this where they say, it's kind of like the little like meme reels these days where it's little Michael Scott in there playing a song over something in the background and you have like a relatable phrase. Basically, it's just a bid to get engagement. It's a bid to say like, this is funny, it's relatable, it's something that kind of just relates to your ideal customer. It doesn't have to be fully about your transformation or your product or your service that you provide. It really is something that is relatable, funny, or like polarizing to your ideal customer that is going to call them in. For some people, it can be kind of controversial because
Mhm.
controversy does kind of build conversation, which can be
Mm-hmm.
really good to bring in new people and get some more engagement. What you're really
Yeah.
looking for with engagement style of content is engagement. We're looking for likes, we're looking for comments, we're looking for views. So I think a lot of times people are posting content looking at likes, comments, and views, but they're hoping for sales, which is very different kind of content. But we'll get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
The next
And
one
I'm
really is
hearing,
yeah,
let me say, I heard you not say, but what I was hearing when you said this was like trendy. Like that's
yeah,
if you're going to be on a piece of like what's hitting, what songs, what
yeah,
memes, what sayings. If there's
yes.
a piece of that you're marketing, this is the time where you want to go out to the masses, be trendy, and then
Mhm.
pull them into the funnel.
Exactly. So
Okay.
this is like the quote unquote viral content you're looking for. Yes, trends are good just because they're timely, which means they do reach more people because they are trending. People are interested in the trend, as well as it can be like, what content is performing in
Mm,
views and getting people like was really popular right now. And how
yeah.
can you do your own spin on that as well?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent.
Value style of content is the next one. And this one can grow and nurture because when you are nurturing people, you're trying to teach them a little bit about your business. Your values is what your business really stands for. Are you for, like, especially if you're service based, what do you have like a stance in the industry? Are you
Mm.
really hardcore this way? Or are you really more of like a balanced based approach? Are you somebody that's an extremist or like every little change makes a big difference? Or do you, like for me, are you organic marketing or are you paid ads? Like what are kind of your stances in the industry that you're going to put your kind of your stake in the ground on, and what do you want to be known for? So like
Well,
I
what is
talk
your stake in the ground on that? That's
yeah,
actually a good
mine
question.
is all about the freedom. So like my whole mission in business is to help people build freedom in their life
Yeah.
alongside of business. And that was my stake in the ground. That was my values. Anytime I post anything about life should be fun as well as business can be
Yeah.
fun, the idea of like, I quit my 9 to 5 to work 24/7 by myself makes me want to gag.
Mm,
Like that kind of that whole all of that is value
yeah.
style content for me. Like that is my stake in the ground, is that business should be fun, community over like virality. A lot of times I'd rather you have a really tight knit community, all of that. It's like me, these are my
Yeah.
frameworks. This is what I stand for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Education. Yes, of course. Education style content really comes down to people trying to be educated on your actual transformation. So this is
Mm,
what are you providing for people, whether if you're a lawyer, like talking about what trademarks versus copyrights are. This is if you're a coach, like, this is what their current beliefs are and this is what's actually right. Here's some strategies, here's what to do, what not to do. This is where
good.
the educators really thrive and they can kind of go through from there. This content again is growing and nurturing because yes, this is going to go out to more people. People are on social media to learn and to be entertained. So this content a lot of times is content that does perform well as personality content. Personality content is what a lot of people have mastered without them even knowing. This is like the average person creating content that's just, these are the behind the scenes of my business. This is what's
Mm,
going on in my day to day. Here is something that you need to know. Again, it can kind of be like this is creating that personality and that connection to you as your own self. This is more of like that personal brand is the personality style of content. A lot of times your personality content can be posted on stories just because it's like, this is what's going on. It's a way for you just to connect with your audience. It's your personal brand pillars. It's what you do as a personal brand or as the founder of your business as well.
okay.
Yeah, and
Excellent.
that's fully nurturing when we really talk about building like a ride or die community, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Now, as we get deeper into some like nitty-gritty selling, launches, promotions, things like that, we're talking about selling content. And the final three are they're a little easier to come by, but they're authority, testimonials, and offers. So authority content is all about what makes you different from everybody else and what really sets you apart. Are they certifications? Is it experience? Is it the frameworks that you have, the transformations, things like that you are really going through? Your testimonials really come down to your case studies, people you've helped, what they've said, your messages, the reviews, all of that. And then the offers really as when you have an offer, this is the info of your offer. This is why people need to buy it and why you can kind of move through that process there as well.
Incredible. And so your advice is that you have all of that going consistently all the time, or is it like through seasons?
Seasons
Like
for
when I
sure.
hear launching, that's only seasonal. Like,
Yes,
but is authority
100%.
seasonal as well, or is that kind of ongoing all the time?
100%. So I go through seasons of business. You're growing, you're nurturing, or you're selling. If I had to be as on it as I am with launching, 100 days, like 100% of the time, we'd
Yeah.
go a little crazy. The nurturing time is fun. Growing, you get to post different styles of content. And I think as business owners, we are people that are very much so, I like to be over here. You don't want to do anything too much consistently where you're kind of like, I like to experiment. I like to move through seasons. So I think it's good to have seasons of growing, nurturing, and selling.
Yeah.
When you go into launching is really about, especially as service providers, it is all about emotion and bringing people through this emotional process. So if we really were to dive into launch strategy is like, moving people through this buying cycle really, really quickly. So it's an increase in
Mm.
content creation. It's an increase in really understanding what matters. You're not posting fluffy, trendy content during launches because at that point, that content isn't talking about an actual transformation, an actual educational piece through that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay. And how many times a year do you recommend your clients or with your frameworks to launch?
Yeah, that kind of depends on your business, what you have, like
Or
what your service suite is.
yeah.
I like to my product-based business clients, as we're recording this in November, they're launching like every 10 days right now because it's the holiday season. They're doing
Right.
like little mini launches, little mini promos or collection releases pretty often, but they do take like you can launch 3 times a year. Like my main
Mhm.
program, I launch 3 times a year. It's my biggest launches of the year. January, June, and September. And those are my major big launches. And then I kind of filter in more like medium and smaller involvement launches throughout. Because you do want to give time like to grow, to nurture, to sell. If you are listening and you're seasoned and you have a lot of different products, it's different because you might have people at different stages. Like when you're launching a program that's about starting is different than if you're launching a program to somebody that's trying to scale their business because they're at 2 different stages. So you're technically not even talking to them at the same time. So it kind of depends. It really does depend on what your service suite is, how many offers do you have. But I like to take a little bit of time, if it's 1 week or 2 weeks even, to nurture in between launches, or it can be 2 months sometimes. It really depends looking at your audience and looking at your service suite.
And I can imagine that this is influenced by your own life plans because you're
Yes,
so much about life, right? So
yes,
like what season fits with whatever your travel is or whatever you have
exactly.
going on in your personal life and
Yeah.
goals is that when I first approached launching, there was like, it was being taught there's certain times of the year that are better than the others. Like it was very strict. It was,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
fit this box or it's not going to work for you. And
Yes.
that's why I was like really against it. I'm very much like you. Like I want to build a business I want a life that's I'm going to mess that up.
No,
I
you're
want a
good.
business that is built around my life as a life being priority, right? And
Yeah.
so when there was these launches, it was just so intense. It was like, timing might not have been aligned with my son's school schedule, or
Yeah.
there was some things you could play with. But I actually swore off launches for these
Yes.
reasons. I wanted to go more organic and I wanted to go more evergreen and more, I'm going to provide value and they'll come in as they come in.
Yeah.
But are you telling me that launches are still alive and working and a
Yeah.
great strategy?
And like anything else in business,
Yeah.
launches have trends. Like,
Right?
in 2020 or 2017, 20 to 2020, 2021, a major launch strategy was let me have a free masterclass, launch after the like pitch it in the masterclass, open the launch, and then launch for the 3 weeks after. And now I don't think that's necessary. I don't think you need to do like the webinar to launch model. I do think for a really long time, they were like shoved into a box. When I first learned how to
Yeah.
launch something, people told me I needed to grow for 4 weeks, I needed to nurture for 4 weeks, and then I needed to sell for 4 weeks. And about 10 to 14 days into my 4 weeks of launching, I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, there's no way I can do this for another 2 weeks. I feel like a drill sergeant. Like, I need to add a little bit more flow into this. When we really look at launches, I still think that they are a incredible strategy because I talk about it in passive versus active sales. This is where you are actively selling. This is where if you nurture enough, people are waiting for you to sell something to them. Like I have people that I follow that whether they talk about personal development or, productivity or whatever, that I'm like, please sell to me. Like I want to be whatever you have going on. I want to be in it, but they never really are selling. Like I'm waiting for them because they've nurtured me so much into their community with their podcast, with their audience. Like they're basically just a content creator. I'm like, why are we not selling something? Because I would buy it. I'm so nurtured. And that's where you want your audience to be. If you really do grow, nurture, and then have a launch of some kind, people should be so activated that they're ready to buy from you and they don't feel like you're selling all the time. I think we all know somebody that is selling 365 days a year and you're kind of like, all right, like I get it. I'm not doing something right.
Actually, I don't follow them anymore. I just don't like that.
I know. I don't either. And I refuse to do it. And I've had coaches or mentors or friends tell me like, oh yeah, you have to talk about your product every single day or to talk about this or that, like be launching something or have a promotion. I'm like, gosh, no, I would burn out. And I think in everything with business, there are different, just like we were saying, there's different archetypes. There's different types of people. Some people want to sell every day and that's great. I commend them. Some people don't want to sell at all. You have to find what really works for you. What works for me is the flow for sometimes. I have people come through in passive sales, but when I make my most sales will naturally be when I sell, when I launch, because I am bringing energy for those 2 weeks that I'm launching something to that offer and telling people these are the people that need it and this is who it's perfect for. So I think truly there needs to be a balance-based approach of flow, passive sales, funnels, people naturally moving themselves forward, and hard, like active selling where you are actually pushing product at different times.
I love the difference of the language of passive to active.
Yes.
And, I've sworn off launches in exactly what you explained, which was, tons of money in paid ads. You do the webinar. These people are cold to you. You're converting them. You're going through this funnel. Like it never landed. And my belief, whether right or wrong, but through my own experiences and my current belief, open to be changed, is that people need more time to know, like, and trust. And it felt like for my services, which to me is it's an investment both in money, but also in the relationship to say, I want to work with a business coach.
Yeah.
I always say, like, I'm not someone you can buy off the shelf. Like, that's not my services. And this launch model was kind of like, it might work for $47 or like a course, but my core offering is not you buy me off the shelf. It only works if you understand what you're buying, which to me is the know, like, trust factor.
100%. And when you have a service, people are buying you and no one's spending $5,000 within an hour of seeing you or like seeing an ad on Instagram being like, yeah, I'm joining this $5,000 program. I've never met her before. Like nobody, I have never had an ad on Instagram to then spend that amount. I think you can do that for maybe up to $9.97 if you have a program. But even then, like you have to nurture these people. And this is why I preach community so much, is because you can nurture this community that loves you. And if you can grow and nurture them, and then you can sell to them and people want what you have to offer and they will cyclically go through that system. Like you are moving them through that system over time. And it takes time. Like I have people that have followed me for 5 years before they work with me. I have people that listen to my podcast and reach out and they're like, Maddie, I'm 3 episodes in. How can I work with you? That's great. The buying process is going to be different, but it's not going to always happen from an ad and then go into this webinar and they're naturally going to want to upsell into a couple $1,000 program. I've never seen that to be, and people see results because it still happens. People are still doing it. But I think it takes a lot more mass numbers for that to be the case.
Yeah. So with regards to specifically around launching, if you're a service-based business owner, what kind of businesses are you seeing are working for this? In fact, I don't even want to call it launch anymore. We're not saying that. We're saying when you're actively selling,
Yes.
through these strategies, what types of businesses or what kind of price point for a service-based business owner do you see are working now?
Yeah. I honestly think every single new program or a cohort of any kind or product push should be actively sold. And
Mm-hmm.
so I have clients that sell $12 products and I have clients that sell $10,000 programs, and I teach them launch strategy for both models. It just looks a little different. Like, think
Right.
about this for yourself. If you're spending a $12 on a candle, it's going to be a little bit lower involvement than if you are going to spend $10,000 on a business coach. And so when we're really looking at this, I would say I really haven't found a business that launching doesn't work for. Why? Is because you're condensing this buying cycle into like these 5 to 7 days or 7 to 14 days, I guess, really condensing it down. And these are the days that you are going to, again, actively, like, you're giving yourself an excuse to push your product, to really give a
Mhm.
ton of service education in those 7 to 10 to 14 days right in there. That is when you are really going to be able to give them the information that they need to really speak the transformation. Because if you think about it, when you're just like kind of lackadaisically talking about yourself, yeah, you're sharing a testimonial that came in overnight. You might be sharing a tidbit here. You're sharing a transformation. You're giving some education. They listen to a podcast. But when you have a specific problem you're trying to solve, let's say we're talking about launching as the actual problem that you're solving, I could talk about a specific case study, a specific problem people have for launching, a specific issue, a mistake that people make, and that what the actual focus needs to be. You can agitate their current beliefs about this one singular topic and move them through that cycle really quickly, because you're talking about it so much in a directed manner around one thing. So, like me, I talk about pricing, I talk about content, I talk about marketing, I talk about your website, I'll talk about your product packaging, I talk about sales. Like, there's so many different pieces, but I could launch something really easily. Like, instead of just saying, I can help you grow your business, I can say, all right, we're going to teach you how to actively sell right now. And this is what we're doing.
Okay, excellent. I have a few more follow-up questions.
Yeah.
So, do you promote organic and paid? Do you see that paid ads are working? And if so, when in the process?
Yeah, I think paid ads work best at the very top of funnel. I would
Mhm.
say paid ads are a place to get people to see you and like your style of content and then move through your buying cycle. I think they can work for like a $7 downloadable, or like you said, a $47 training. Maybe if you do offer free trainings. I've have ran ads just to my Instagram profile, and I've seen that convert. I've run ads to my podcast, just like a podcast clip. I've seen that convert to like listeners. For me, I know that if I get people to my podcast, like they like my style, they're going to eventually be ready to work with me if it
Yeah.
fits. And that is my flow. Is I post these podcasts out there. I have, 400 hours of content out there. Go listen to it. If you like my style, you still want to listen to my Midwest
Yep.
accent, like, that's great. Come on over and then we can hang. So I really see ads working top of funnel. This is why I think jumping into ads too soon before you have proof of concept, proof of sales process, like, you need to know that when someone reaches your world, you know how to move them through that sales process and get them to buy, in my opinion, before you run ads. I think it's a great way to get more eyes and more data and more numbers, but I love to nurture that community first and then add ads to get people into your world.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. And do you have any opinions on putting content on a platform you don't own that can be shadow banned? Your account can get closed. You know where I'm going with this. Like,
Yeah.
is there a way in which you are seeing to diversify where the content's going, where you more own it? And do you have any recommendations around that for
Yeah,
what you're
I
seeing?
would say, like, proceed with caution on everything. I mean, I would also say if you're a service-based entrepreneur, as you've already said, it's not too late to start some sort of long form piece of content. I think having a podcast or a YouTube channel or going live once a week on Instagram, something like
Mhm.
that people can consume you in longer form, I think is a great way where they can really see what you're like to work with, who you are, listen to you speak.
Yeah.
Um, I really feel like we can't be skeptical about absolutely everything, but I do think having an email list is really important, diversifying where you have people in multiple areas, because the odds of your podcast getting shut down, your Instagram getting shut down, your email list disappearing is pretty low. So we just want to make sure that we are moving people through this funnel. So for me, I have podcast listeners. They listen on any Spotify, Apple, whatever,
Yeah.
Stitcher. I have people that can watch me on YouTube. They watch the podcast. So I have basically diversified where I post. Then I have people on Instagram. My Instagram people go to my email list. And so I know that these people are moving through this similar cycle. And then I have them in multiple areas. I know if my Instagram got shut down, I could put a podcast episode out and say, hey, my Instagram went bye-bye. This is what I'm doing. Follow me on this new account. And I have people in other areas that would still transition back. And most of the time, they will be my warmest and my hottest leads.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that too. All right.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Before we close out, is there anything else I didn't ask you that you want to share with our listeners around marketing, launching, paid ads? We talked about a lot
So
today.
much, so many
Yeah.
frameworks and
Yeah.
topics and strategies. It's good. It's a big one. You could have a lot of notes. I think one of the biggest pieces is understanding that there are different types of buyers. When I learned how to launch and my business really started to see big growth, I learned how to launch and like how to actively sell. And I learned how people buy. There are 4 different types of
Mm,
buyers, and some are logical and some are emotional. And so just like with everything we've talked about, your audience is going to have stronger elements, whether you have naturally pulled in more logical people or more emotional people, but you have a variety of people. So you have to learn how to sell emotionally and logically to the 4 different types of buyers. So the 4 different types of buyers are textbook. They're not a framework that I came up with. I learned them in college. Like, you can go and you can search them. They're out there. They're amiable, expressive, analytical, and ami- amiable, expressive. Oh, and driver. I always forget one of them. It's hard to bring them all up, but
no worries.
driver, analytical, expressive, and amiable. You can go look them up. That is another really great thing. But learning how to move people through an emotional process through
Mhm.
buying is really, really important, because there are a lot of people that are emotional buyers. Like, people enjoy the like hoorah behind buying from people. Like, there are some people that feed off of emotion a lot. And we are seeing that as like Gen Z kind of starts to come up, they are more expressive, emotional buyers as well.
I love that you included that because, as you may imagine, that's not my natural tendency. That's not my buying style. It
Yeah.
reminds me of the 4 love languages. I'm not sure if you've heard of
Yes.
that
It's the
book,
same concept.
right? And so you market the way that you want to be marketed to, or you sell
Yes.
the way that you want to sell to, right? And so, understanding that there's 4 types and that it would do your business well to make sure you're addressing those 4 types, even though it's not your natural buying tendency.
Yes, and I'm the
Yeah.
same way. I'm not an emotional buyer. Give me the
Yeah.
hard details, give me the analytics. I wanna know what I'm gonna get. I wanna know what's going on. But
Yeah.
I do think, like, there are plenty of people that do buy in that emotional sense, and you're totally right. The love languages are, like, a perfect example of the same kind of metaphor to it.
Yeah. So I was on one of your landing pages, sales pages for one of your products, and it's like, all the copy, and then you get about, I don't know, 2/3 of the way down. It says, for all you gals that want the details.
Yes.
And I was
You're
like, oh, she's talking to me, even though I was
Yes.
just doing research before the interview. And so I can see that you have integrated that into your copy and
Yes.
really called it out for the scroller, which I was a
Mhm.
scroller, and that stopped me dead in my tracks because
Oh, yeah.
I was the gal you were talking to.
Yes, I don't even look at the
Yeah.
first half of a sales page. I'm like, let me go all
Yeah.
the way to the bottom. I know it's gonna be where I actually want it to be, and that's like, I know I'm a
Yeah.
details person.
Right.
But there are people that will sit down and read every testimonial. They'll read every emotional piece, and it's important to call to all of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Madison, how can our listeners learn more about your offerings? How can they hear about share your podcast? Like, where can they
Yeah.
find you?
For sure. You can find me on any platform, mostly Instagram at This Is Madison Page, or you can listen to my podcast, which is the Small Business Growth Podcast. Like I said, I have hundreds of hours of podcasts there, and you can learn more about all the frameworks there as well.
Excellent. We'll be sharing all those links in the show notes. Madison, thank you so much for sharing and educating us and being the speaker here. Like, this was your jam. I could totally see it. Thank you so much for sharing so much value and nuggets for our audience.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
I have loved having you listen to the Small Business Straight Talk podcast, and I sure hope you found my conversation with Madison to be incredibly insightful and valuable for your business. But I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on my conversation with Madison, what action can you take to implement something in your business from today? Let it be small, let it be big, but get clear on what action you will take. I personally walked away from today's conversation with several insights, thus actionables for my business. There was things that Madison shared that I heard or maybe heard in different ways, but when she explained it, it landed so clearly with me on how I can up-level my own social media strategy and the purpose of each of the types of posts that I'm making. And for me, understanding that strategy behind up-leveling my own social media was incredibly helpful. And as a reminder, if you've been thinking about working with me privately in my one-on-one coaching, I highly recommend you schedule a discovery call. I have a few openings for early 2025, but they will book up fast, so book a discovery call now. You can learn more about my private coaching and to schedule a discovery call by heading on over to amberdelagarza.com/coaching. Again, that's amberdelagarza.com/coaching. And if you're new here, I just want to say welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And if you've been here for a while, I would be so grateful if you would take the time to leave us a review wherever you're listening to this episode of the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. So that's my straight talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.